I'm her.
You're pretty.
Thank you.
Make good faces, too.
I've had a lot of experience.
Before he was a Hollywood legend, before he held an Oscar in his hands, he was just a small boy with a wide smile and a freckled face, a boy named Opie. Before we dive into video, please subscribe our channel. The story begins in Duncan, Oklahoma, a quiet town with wide skies and dusty roads. It was here, on March 1st, 1954, that Ronald William Howard, the boy who would become the beloved Opie Taylor, was born. From the very beginning, his world was wrapped in lights, cameras, and dreams. His father, Rance Howard, was a World War II veteran turned actor and director. His mother, Jean Spiegel Howard, was a spirited actress with a powerful stage presence. Acting wasn't just a career in the Howard family. It was the family tradition. At just 18 months old, Ron made his first appearance on screen in a commercial. Most toddlers were still learning to walk. Ron was already learning how to hit his marks. By the age of 4, he was landing small roles in television shows, his red hair and honest eyes capturing hearts instantly. But it wasn't until 1960 that everything changed. That year, little Ron was cast as Opie Taylor, the sweet and curious son of Sheriff Andy Taylor, in The Andy Griffith Show. Audiences across America fell in love with the gentle father-son relationship, and Ron's charm became a household treasure. Millions watched every week as Opie asked his father simple questions about life, fishing, and growing up. Questions many viewers secretly wanted answers to themselves. But fame comes at a cost. While other children were riding bikes or playing hide and seek, Ron was memorizing lines and spending long hours under hot studio lights. There were no typical school days or summer vacations for Opie Taylor. Behind the camera, Ron remained a polite and humble boy, but the pressure was always there. The pressure to be perfect, to smile, to keep the show going. Yet, his parents made one thing clear. Acting was not everything. They kept him grounded, made sure he stayed in school, and reminded him that life was bigger than the screen. Ron often said later in life that his parents gave him freedom within the frame, helping him stay human even while living in the spotlight. As The Andy Griffith Show continued into the mid-1960s, Ron grew up on screen, and so did his audience. They watched as his voice deepened, his face matured, and the innocent questions slowly became thoughtful reflections. But behind those kind eyes and warm smile, a new dream had started to form. A dream not in front of the camera, but behind it. What made the world's favorite child actor step away from the spotlight? And what happened when he did? He had the fame. He had the face. But Ron Howard wanted something more. Control of the story. As The Andy Griffith Show came to a graceful end in 1968, Ron Howard was entering his teenage years. That awkward stage of life where most kids are just trying to figure out who they are. But Ron wasn't like most kids. He had already spent nearly a decade under the public eye, and now he faced a different kind of challenge. Transitioning from child star to serious actor, and eventually, something even more unexpected, a filmmaker. Ron returned to a somewhat normal life, enrolling at John Burroughs High School in Burbank, California. But normal was never truly possible for someone like him. He was Opie to everyone, classmates, teachers, fans on the street. The label was glued to him, and the world didn't yet know how to see him as anything else. Still, Ron kept acting. In the early 70s, he appeared in a string of roles that allowed him to stretch beyond the small-town boy image. But one opportunity stood out. A little film called American Graffiti, 1973, directed by the then unknown George Lucas. In it, Ron played Steve Bolander, a high school senior on the verge of adulthood. The film captured the spirit of youth in a changing America, and Ron's performance proved that he was more than just a child actor. He could carry a story. He could move people. But the film didn't just boost his reputation, it sparked something deeper inside him. Working with George Lucas, Ron became fascinated with the process of directing. He watched closely as Lucas shaped the vision, directed the crew, and brought the story to life. Ron began thinking not just as an actor, but as a storyteller. That same year, he enrolled at the University of Southern California's School of Cinematic Arts. Though he didn't stay long, his education would come more from experience than the classroom. In 1974, Ron was cast in what would become another American television classic, Happy Days. As Richie Cunningham, the clean-cut, good-hearted teen from Milwaukee, Ron once again found himself in America's living rooms, week after week. The show was a massive hit, launching the careers of many, including Henry Winkler as the iconic Fonzie. But even as Happy Days soared in popularity, Ron's heart wasn't fully in it. Behind the scenes, he was scribbling ideas for scripts, watching how directors worked, and absorbing every lesson he could about filmmaking. He respected acting, but it didn't give him what he craved, the ability to shape the full picture. The director, he realized, was the one who told the real story, and Ron had stories he wanted to tell. In 1977, he took a bold step. He directed his very first film, Grand Theft Auto, a low-budget action comedy about a young couple stealing a car to elope. It was far from Oscar-worthy, but it marked an important beginning. Ron had stepped behind the camera, and he wasn't going back. From that moment, his career would begin to shift, from being seen as a former child star to someone who could one day become one of Hollywood's most respected filmmakers. But breaking free from the Opie image wasn't easy, and his path to success was filled with doubt, rejection, and unexpected lessons. What did Ron Howard risk to become the man behind the camera? He was no longer the boy beside the sheriff or the teen next to Fonzie. Ron Howard was now writing his own story and directing the world to follow. The late 1970s and early 1980s were a turning point in Ron Howard's life. With Grand Theft Auto under his belt, he had proven he could direct. But the film industry still wasn't sure. Hollywood has always been skeptical of child stars trying to reinvent themselves. To many, Ron was still Opie, or Richie, the clean-cut kid everyone grew up watching. Could he really handle major productions? Could he lead a team? Could he tell stories that mattered? Ron knew he could, and he was ready to prove it. He partnered with legendary producer Roger Corman, known for giving newcomers a chance, and slowly began working on more serious directing projects. He took every opportunity to learn and improve, observing cinematographers, studying scripts, experimenting with camera movements, and absorbing the power of editing. His big breakthrough came in 1982 with the release of Night Shift, a comedy about morgue workers who turn their workplace into a nightclub. Starring Michael Keaton and Henry Winkler, the film was quirky, fresh, and funny. And more importantly, it showed Hollywood that Ron Howard could handle a complex film and make it successful. The critics praised him. The studios began to take him seriously. But Ron wasn't just aiming for laughs. He wanted heart, depth, imagination. That dream became a reality in 1984 with the fantasy romance Splash, starring Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah. The story of a man falling in love with a mermaid might have seemed odd on paper, but Ron brought magic to the screen. The film became a box office hit and earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Original Screenplay. This success changed everything. Ron Howard was now a serious director in the eyes of Hollywood, and he wasn't stopping. In the following years, he directed Cocoon, 1985, a science fiction drama about aging and alien life, which touched audiences with its emotional core and earned 2 Academy Awards. Then came Willow, 1988, a fantasy epic produced by George Lucas, and Parenthood, 1989, a heartfelt family comedy drama that showcased Ron's ability to tell deeply personal and relatable stories. Ron had a rare talent, blending emotion, humor, and spectacle. Whether it was aliens, magic, or suburban life, he made audiences care. His films were more than entertainment. They were experiences. And then, in 1995, came the masterpiece that would define his career, Apollo 13, starring Tom Hanks, Kevin Bacon, and Ed Harris. The film told the true story of NASA's ill-fated lunar mission and the heroic efforts to bring the crew back home. It was a technical challenge. It was emotionally intense, and Ron directed it flawlessly. The film earned 9 Academy Award nominations and solidified Ron Howard's place among the greats. The boy once known only as Opie was now a master storyteller, a director trusted with history, emotion, and vision. But success didn't come without pressure. Bigger projects meant bigger expectations, and behind the scenes, life was not always easy. As the spotlight grew brighter, how did Ron Howard protect his family, his values, and his vision in the ever-demanding world of Hollywood? In an industry built on spotlights and scripts, Ron Howard found something rare, a love that was real, steady, and lifelong. While Ron Howard was building his Hollywood dream, he was also nurturing something even more precious, a deep, unwavering relationship that began long before the fame. In 1970, at just 16 years old, Ron met Cheryl Alley, a sweet and intelligent girl who wasn't dazzled by his fame. She didn't care about Opie or the bright lights of television. What she saw was the real Ron, thoughtful, grounded, and humble. The two quickly formed a strong connection, rooted in friendship, trust, and shared values. They dated through high school, standing firm while many around them crumbled under the weight of Hollywood pressure. On June 7, 1975, they got married. Ron was just 21, still filming Happy Days, and Cheryl was by his side, quiet but constant. Many in the entertainment world doubted their marriage would last. After all, long-lasting love stories in Hollywood are rare. But Ron and Cheryl were different. They kept their private life truly private. No scandals, no tabloid headlines, just a quiet, supportive marriage that would become one of the longest-lasting unions in Hollywood. Over the years, they built a beautiful life together, away from the chaos, away from the cameras. Cheryl, a talented writer, published several books under the name Cheryl Howard Crew. She also supported Ron's directing dreams, often accompanying him on film sets and serving as a sounding board for ideas. They raised 4 children together, including their daughter Bryce Dallas Howard, who would go on to become a successful actress and director in her own right. Ron often credited Cheryl for his success, not just in interviews, but in the way he lived. She was his anchor, his muse, his home. In a world where relationships often flicker and fade under the pressure of fame, theirs remained strong and sincere. Even as Ron directed box office hits and accepted awards, he made time for family dinners, school plays, and quiet getaways. He never lost sight of what mattered most. That balance between ambition and affection became the foundation of his life. But life isn't always perfect, even for someone like Ron. While his marriage stood strong, he began facing deeper personal challenges. The struggle to stay relevant, the fear of being boxed into safe storytelling, and the emotional burden of perfection. As his family grew and his career matured, new pressures emerged, and Ron would have to make tough choices about work, about his legacy, and about how much of himself to give to the world. Just when everything seemed smooth, the cracks of Hollywood would begin to show, and not even Ron Howard could avoid its darker side forever. Every shining legacy carries its own shadow, and even the most beloved storytellers must confront their darkest chapters. For most of his life, Ron Howard appeared untouched by the chaos that swirled around Hollywood. No wild scandals, no tabloid affairs, no public breakdowns. But the truth, as always, is more complicated. Behind the warm smile and steady success, Ron faced real struggles. Not with the law, not with behavior, but with something more invisible and deeply personal, the weight of expectation. After directing Apollo 13, Ron had reached a peak. He was no longer just a respected director. He was considered one of the best. And with that reputation came enormous pressure. Each new project was judged not on its own merit, but by comparison to his greatest hits. When his films didn't break box office records or win awards, critics were quick to question, was Ron Howard losing his touch? Movies like Eddie TV 1999 and The Dilemma 2011 received lukewarm reactions, with some calling them safe, formulaic, or too polished. Audiences who once adored his feel-good storytelling started craving edgier, darker cinema. And for a director known for optimism and sincerity, it was a difficult shift. Then came the pressure of the Da Vinci Code series, a global blockbuster franchise starring Tom Hanks. The first film, based on Dan Brown's controversial novel, stirred debates around the world. Religious groups condemned it. Critics were divided. Though the film earned over $700 million globally, many questioned Ron's decision to take it on. Was he chasing money? Was he sacrificing depth for box office numbers? Ron, true to form, didn't respond with drama or defense. Instead, he focused on the craft, directing 2 more films in the series, Angels and Demons, 2009, and Inferno, 2016. While all were financially successful, none were critically loved, and Ron knew it. Meanwhile, changes in the film industry were rattling even the most seasoned directors. Streaming platforms, short attention spans, and superhero franchises had taken over. Classic character-driven storytelling was being pushed aside. For someone like Ron, who valued heart, nuance, and emotional arcs, This shift felt like a threat to the kind of movies he loved to make. But perhaps the most unexpected controversy came with Solo, a Star Wars story, 2018. Ron stepped in as director after original filmmakers Phil Lord and Chris Miller were fired due to creative differences. While Ron was praised for stabilizing a troubled production, fans weren't thrilled. The film struggled at the box office, becoming one of the least successful entries in the Star Wars saga. For the first time in years, people were openly questioning Ron Howard's choices. Had he gone too commercial? Had the magic faded? The criticism hurt, but it didn't break him, because through every misstep, Ron Howard remained consistent, kind to his crew, devoted to his family, and true to his values. He didn't chase headlines. He chased stories. And even when the spotlight dimmed, he kept writing, kept dreaming, kept directing. But Ron's story wasn't over. Not even close. Just when the world thought he had peaked, he would rise again. Stronger, deeper, and more respected than ever before. He never shouted for attention. He never played the scandal game. Yet, quietly and steadily, Ron Howard became one of the most respected filmmakers of our time. After the mixed reactions to Solo, a Star Wars story, many might have stepped back. But Ron Howard is not driven by trends or critics. He's driven by a deep love for storytelling. And as he moved into the next chapter of his career, that passion became clearer than ever. In 2020, Ron directed Hillbilly Elegy, a film based on J.D. Vance's controversial memoir about growing up in a poor Appalachian family. The film was emotionally raw, complex, and personal. Though reviews were divided, some praised its performances, others criticized its political undertones. Ron's direction was once again grounded in empathy. He wasn't chasing a message. He was telling a human story. That's always been Ron Howard's gift. He doesn't make films to impress. He makes them to connect, to remind us of family, dreams, hardship, and hope. And he's not slowing down. Through his production company, Imagine Entertainment, which he co-founded with Brian Grazer, Ron continues to produce powerful films and series, supporting other voices, mentoring young filmmakers, and shaping the future of Hollywood from behind the curtain. Beyond Hollywood, Ron's personal life remains an inspiration. His marriage to Cheryl has crossed the 45-year mark, a stunning rarity in the entertainment world. His children, including Bryce Dallas Howard, have found their own paths in film, carrying forward the family legacy with grace and talent. Despite decades in the spotlight, Ron stays remarkably grounded. He doesn't live in lavish excess, he doesn't stir up social media, he lives simply, often wearing the same baseball cap, and speaks with the same calm tone he always has. He never forgot where he came from, that small town in Oklahoma, the quiet studio halls of The Andy Griffith Show, the spark he felt holding a camera for the first time. Today, Ron Howard is more than a former child actor, more than an Oscar-winning director, more than a Hollywood name. He is a symbol of balance between fame and humility, art and success, family and ambition. His estimated net worth, reportedly over $200 million, might suggest a life of glamour. But for Ron, true wealth has always come in the form of stories told, moments captured, and lives touched. He once said, "The greatest thing you can do as a filmmaker is make people feel something real." And he's been doing just that for over 6 decades. From Opie's fishing rod to Apollo's command module, from quiet family dramas to epic fantasies, Ron Howard has built a legacy not just of movies, but of meaning. And as he continues to create, teach, and inspire, one truth remains clear. The boy who once asked innocent questions on screen grew up to answer the biggest ones behind the lens.